Close your eyes for a second. Just imagine the sharp, metallic ring of a cash register.
Okay, I'm hearing it.
Right, but instead of ringing up, a cup of coffee or like a new pair of shoes, the digital display flashes $100,000.
Oh, wow. That's a hefty cup of coffee.
Yeah, right. But that is the typical price tag. And honestly, often just the starting point, really, of an elite Master of Business Administration degree, an MBA.
Yeah, it's a staggering amount of money. It really is.
It's massive. So ask yourself, what if you could acquire that exact same level of world-class business mastery? Like the same strategic frameworks, the same edge, but without taking on a mortgage-sized debt and without quitting your job for 2 years to sit in a lecture hall.
I mean, it really is the ultimate modern question, isn't it? Like for professional development, we are so heavily conditioned to believe that mastery is, I don't know, locked behind these ID-covered gates,
Yeah.
guarded by exorbitant tuition fees and standardized tests.
Right, the whole gatekeeping thing.
Exactly. But what if that barrier to entry is actually just an illusion?
And so that brings us to the mission of today's deep dive. We are exploring this really extensive 70-plus page analysis suite based on Josh Kaufman's international bestseller, The Personal MBA.
It's such a great resource.
It really is. We are looking at comprehensive chapter breakdowns, a synthesized 30-day mastery plan, and even some fascinating character psychology profiles of different types of learners.
Right. The psychology part is huge.
Totally. So whether you are, prepping for a boardroom meeting or sketching out a side hustle on a napkin, or if you are just insanely curious about how the corporate world actually ticks, we are bypassing all that information overload to give you the ultimate shortcut.
Yeah, and the foundational argument here is incredibly democratizing. Because Kaufman, who actually bypassed business school himself to work at Procter & Gamble, he built this entire philosophy on one specific thesis.
Which is?
That business is not rocket science. It's really not. At its absolute most fundamental level, a business is simply a process of identifying a problem and finding a way to solve it that benefits both parties.
That's literally it. Just finding a problem and solving it.
Yeah. And he argues that curiosity, self-education, and real-world experimentation are actually, far more effective than classroom instruction.
Right. But to prove that, we have to completely deconstruct what a business actually is. Because, the corporate world, it loves to hide behind jargon.
Oh, absolutely. Synergy, deliverables, bandwidth.
Exactly. All the buzzwords. But Kaufman strips all of that away into what he calls the 5 parts of every business.
Yeah, and these are basically the mechanical requirements for a venture to even exist. Regardless of whether you are running some multinational tech conglomerate or just a corner lemonade stand, you have to have these 5 elements.
Okay, let's unpack this. What's the first one?
First is value creation. So you have to discover what people actually need or want, and then, create a solution for it.
Makes sense.
Second is marketing. Because once you have that solution, you have to attract attention and build demand for it.
Right, because if you build a revolutionary new product in your basement and you don't tell anyone...
Nobody is coming to buy it. You need eyeballs.
Exactly. Eyeballs are key.
Precisely. So third is sales, and this is distinct from marketing, which people confuse a lot. Sales is the actual transition point where you turn those prospective, interested individuals into paying customers.
Okay, got it.
Fourth is value delivery. You took their money. Now you actually have to give them the value you promised and make sure they're satisfied.
The fulfillment part.
Right. And finally, the fifth part is finance. You must bring in enough money to keep the entire operation going.
Okay, so think about these 5 parts, like the vital organs of a human body. You have the heart, the lungs, the brain, the liver, the kidneys. They are completely interdependent.
That's a really good way to look at it.
Right. Like, you can have a perfectly healthy heart, which is an amazing product, let's say. But if the lungs stop taking in oxygen because your marketing is terrible, the whole organism just shuts down.
Yeah, and that interdependence is exactly what Kaufman illustrates through this series of brilliant what-if scenarios. Like, take any one of these 5 factors away and you don't have a business anymore. You have something else entirely.
Give me an example.
Well, if you have a venture that doesn't create value for others, you don't have a business. You just have a hobby. You're just doing it for your own amusement.
Ah, okay. And a venture that creates value but fails to attract any attention is just a flop.
Exactly. And if it gets attention but doesn't actually sell the value it creates, that is a nonprofit.
Oh, that's interesting. And let me guess. A venture that sells but doesn't actually deliver what it promises. That's just a scam.
You nailed it. It's a scam. And finally, A venture that does all of those things but doesn't bring in enough money to keep operating well, that's a business that will inevitably close. It's purely mathematical at that point.
Which brings us to a massive insight regarding that fifth organ, finance. Because there's a quote in this analysis that honestly feels like a gut punch. It says, revenue is vanity, profit and cash flow are survival.
It's so true.
Wait, so let me reason through this. If I'm selling, I don't know, thousands of units of furniture, my revenue is huge. That's the vanity metric. I look incredibly successful on paper.
Right, you're the toast of the town.
But if my suppliers demand payment in 30 days and my customers don't pay me for 60 days, my cash is completely tied up.
You've hit the exact mechanism there.
Mhm.
People so often obsess over the value creation organ. They build this beautiful product and the revenue comes pouring in. But profit is what makes the effort worthwhile over the long term, and cash flow is the actual oxygen in the blood right now.
Because you still have to pay the bills.
Exactly. If you can't make payroll next week because all your money is tied up in inventory, your business dies, regardless of how much revenue you show on a spreadsheet. So understanding this interdependence prevents founders from obsessing over the product while completely ignoring the oxygen.
Okay, so we've got the anatomy down. We understand the machine and its 5 vital organs, but knowing how the machine works doesn't tell us what the machine should actually build.
Right, that's a completely different problem.
Yeah, because you can engineer the most perfect, efficient system in the world, but what if it steps out into an environment that simply doesn't want it?
And this is where we have to shift from mechanics to markets. The analysis introduces what Kaufman calls the iron law of the market. And it is a cold, unforgiving rule.
Sounds intense.
It is. It basically states that if you don't have a large group of people who really, really want what you have to offer, your chances of building a viable business are practically zero. You just cannot force a market to exist through sheer willpower or, like, clever marketing.
It's the classic trap of building a solution looking for a problem. So how do you avoid that? How do you actually know what people want before you waste years building the wrong thing?
By understanding the psychology behind why we buy anything at all, the text references these Harvard Business School professors who identified the 4 core human drives. And every successful business maps onto at least one of these fundamental evolutionary needs.
Okay, what's the first one?
First, we have the drive to acquire.
Yeah.
So this is the desire to obtain physical objects, but also, immaterial things like status, power, and influence. This is what drives retail, luxury brands, and investment firms.
Makes sense. Then there's the drive to bond, right? That deep evolutionary desire to form relationships, feel connected, and just be part of a tribe. That's your social media, dating apps, community platforms.
Exactly. Next is the drive to learn, which is satisfying our innate curiosity and making sense of the world. That's education, media, traditional publishing, and, well, even this very deep dive you're listening to right now.
We are definitely satisfying the drive to learn today. And finally, the drive to defend. The need to protect ourselves, our loved ones, our property, and our resources. That's home security, insurance companies, legal services, cybersecurity, all of that.
Spot on.
Okay, but let me throw a wrench in this just to see how durable this framework is. Let's look at something incredibly basic. Say I'm an entrepreneur listening to this right now, and I want to open a humble, local brick-and-mortar bakery.
Okay, I love a good bakery.
Right. But which drive am I actually serving? Because on the surface, I'm just selling carbs. Am I serving the drive to acquire a croissant? Or am I serving the drive to bond over shared experiences by creating a community gathering space?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that friction you're identifying is exactly what the analysis wants you to explore, because a successful bakery likely touches on multiple drives, sure. But the rule is that it must definitively serve at least one as its primary engine.
Primary engine. Got it.
Yeah. So if your bakery is located right outside a busy subway station and it's purely transactional-like, people rushing in for a quick coffee and bagel on the way to work, you are fulfilling a basic physical need tied loosely to the drive to acquire. Speed and efficiency are your value propositions.
But if I design my bakery with, like, plush seating, warm lighting, slow acoustic music, and a community board,
then you are deliberately optimizing for the drive to bond. You aren't really selling coffee anymore. You are selling a third space for connection. The coffee is just the rent people pay to occupy the space.
oh, wow. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah. And the danger is trying to be both. If you try to be a high-speed commuter stop and a cozy community lounge at the same time, your marketing dilutes, your operations clash, and you fail, you really have to know which psychological itch you're primarily scratching.
That completely reframes how you look at a storefront. All right, so we have the five-part structure, and we've mapped out the market and the human drives. But let's look at the solo founder actually trying to build
The
this.
human element.
Yeah. How does an individual process all of this mechanics and psychology without just, burning out or getting paralyzed by the sheer volume of decisions?
This is where Kaufman introduces the toolkit,
Yeah.
specifically the concept of mental models. And these aren't just step-by-step instructions. They are foundational frameworks that alter how you perceive information.
It's almost like putting on polarized sunglasses. The landscape itself hasn't changed at all, but suddenly the glare is gone, the noise is filtered out, and you can clearly see the fish moving under the water. Mental models just remove the cognitive noise so you can see the actual problem.
That is a brilliant way to put it. I really like that analogy. And one of the most vital mental models he advocates for business education is the 80-20 principle, also known as the Pareto principle.
Oh, the 80-20 rule.
Right. Kaufman points out that 80% of the useful information you will ever need to know about a topic is found in roughly 20% of the books written about it.
Which is such a massive relief. I mean, if you've ever walked into the business section of a bookstore, it is terrifying. It's just a mountain of thousands of titles.
It really is overwhelming.
So Kaufman is basically giving you permission to stop trying to read the top 100 books on marketing. Just pick one highly recommended book, commit to it, read it by the end of the week, and start applying it. Defeat the analysis paralysis.
Exactly. Another crucial model he talks about is the context principle. The core idea here is that content is king, but context is God.
Context is God.
Yeah, meaning the environment in which you deliver your message dramatically alters how that message is received by people.
Give me an example of the mechanism there. Like, how does context actually change the content?
Well, think about a luxury watch. If a brand tries to sell a $10,000 timepiece, the content of their pitch is all about craftsmanship, heritage, status, right?
Yep.
But if they place that exact same pitch word for word on a discount coupon website, it fails completely. The context of the discount site signals cheap and bargain hunting. It actively fights the message. You have to meet your target audience in a context that aligns with the value you are offering.
The environment dictates the reception. That makes perfect sense. But, beyond these analytical frameworks, there is a very human side to this analysis that honestly surprised me.
Yeah, the biological side.
Right. I mean, think about your own workplace for a second. How many purely strategic, quote-unquote, business problems are actually just human psychology problems in disguise? Or, like worse, just exhaustion problems caused by a CEO who hasn't slept in 3 days?
It's a profound irony, isn't it? We have this comprehensive guide to replacing an elite MBA, and it dedicates a massive amount of space to simply managing your own biology.
Which you wouldn't expect.
Not at all. But Kaufman talks about managing your gas tank.
Yeah.
Your personal executive function, your ability to make good decisions, is the ultimate bottleneck for your business.
Because you cannot execute a brilliant value creation strategy if your cognitive engine is just running on fumes.
Exactly. Success requires 7 to 8 hours of sleep, high-quality food, and regular exercise. Decision fatigue is a real biological phenomenon.
Yeah, it's science.
Right. If your brain is exhausted, you will default to the easiest choice, not the smartest choice. True leaders, according to this framework, aren't minted in elite business schools. They make themselves by fiercely protecting their energy and seeking out the specific knowledge they need.
Which naturally leads us to a necessary moment of critical analysis here. If business is truly this accessible, if it really boils down to 5 mechanical parts, 4 human drives, a handful of mental models, and getting 8 hours of sleep, why do Harvard, Stanford, and Wharton still exist?
That is the million-dollar question.
Let's look at this objectively. The analysis suite includes documented criticisms of Kaufman's work, and we need to look at those limits. We want to be totally impartial here.
There are absolutely valid boundaries to this approach. First, reviewers point out that the title, The Personal MBA, is slightly misleading. It is an exceptional world-class introduction to business concepts, but it doesn't literally replace the deep, highly specialized coursework of a graduate degree.
Right. It's like it's the blueprint of the house, but it doesn't teach you the complex masonry required to actually lay the bricks.
Exactly. It will give you the mental models for finance, but it won't teach you how to navigate complex international tax law, advanced corporate accounting, or intricate global supply chain logistics.
It makes a lot of sense.
Furthermore, critics note it focuses heavily on entrepreneurship, like building your own venture from scratch, rather than the intense political maneuvering and structural dynamics of leading massive, pre-existing corporate giants.
So whether you think this book can replace an MBA depends entirely on what you are trying to achieve, and more importantly, who you are as a learner. And the analysis actually provides a character psychology pack that categorizes the audience into a few distinct personas. This is where it gets really reflective.
Yeah, so you might fall into the self-educator persona. This is the curious, voracious learner who is highly skeptical of traditional institutions. They love that they can acquire knowledge quickly and cheaply.
But what's their blind spot?
Their major friction point is analysis paralysis. They love the safety of theory. So they will read 100 books, map out perfect business plans, but never actually launch a product because doing so risks failure.
Oh, wow. They know everything but build nothing. Then there's the opposite, right? The DIY entrepreneur. This is the action-oriented builder. They don't want to read a single chapter. They just want to build, launch, break things, and try again.
The classic startup hustle.
Right. They learn rapidly from raw experience, but their critical flaw is that they constantly reinvent the wheel poorly. They just burn through cash making easily avoidable mistakes because they refuse to learn the foundational theory first.
Yeah, I've seen that a lot. And then there is the traditional MBA persona. This is the credential seeker. They deeply value formal education, the prestige of the institution, and, the powerful alumni network that comes with an Ivy League degree.
But their friction point is overvaluing that piece of paper.
Exactly. They incur massive debt, potentially without ever gaining the practical, scrappy experience of actually building something from absolute zero.
I mean, if you are listening to this, you probably recognize a bit of your own tendencies in one of those profiles. I know I do.
Oh, for sure.
But the ultimate goal, synthesizing all of this, is to become what the text calls the integrated learner. You balance the reading with the doing, you respect the codified knowledge in the books, but you know those mental models are entirely useless until you apply them in the real world.
Yeah. As Kaufman warns, you cannot learn to manage people until you actually have direct reports looking to you for guidance. You cannot learn how to navigate a cash flow crisis until you are staring down a payroll deadline with an empty bank account.
Nothing teaches you like sheer panic.
Truly. Books are highly concentrated packets of hard-won experience from others. They are invaluable. But reading plus doing is the only actual path to mastery. All education is fundamentally self-education.
Reading plus doing equals mastery. So if you are an integrated learner, how do you actually start the doing part? Well, the analysis provides a 30-day business mastery plan, and it's not just a casual checklist. It's designed to force you through the friction points we just talked about.
Super practical.
Yeah, so week 1, identify a problem worth solving, find that market need, and map it to a human drive.
Week 2 is building demand. And the analysis notes this is exactly where 80% of DIY entrepreneurs crash and burn, because they refuse to test their messaging before they build the product. You really have to figure out your audience and test whether they actually care.
Right. Week 3, practice the pitch. Address customer needs, navigate their objections, and build the trust required to actually drive a sale.
And week 4, track the cash flow. Build the financial model that ensures you survive long enough to keep delivering value.
It's a phenomenal, high-pressure way to transition from passive consumption to active creation. So we challenge you to take a micro-action today. You don't have to quit your job and launch a tech startup tomorrow. Just start small.
Right. Keep it manageable.
Yeah, like volunteer to help a friend stress test their business plan using the 5 parts. Or look at your own department at work. Are you creating value, or are you just a cost center? Apply a mental model to your afternoon meeting.
But before we let you go, this actually raises one final critical question, something we need to leave you to mull over. It's a twist that builds on everything we've unpacked today, and it gets into some fascinatingly gray territory.
Ooh, all right, let's hear it.
Well, Kaufman is adamant that a business must create value, right? And we spent significant time discussing how deeply we are driven by those 4 core needs. The drive to acquire, bond, learn, and defend.
Yeah, the evolutionary stuff.
Right. But Kaufman also heavily emphasizes the importance of understanding cognitive biases and emotional triggers to effectively market to those drives. So what happens when a venture perfectly fulfills one of those drives, let's say the drive to bond on a social media platform, but it actively preys on our cognitive biases, like dopamine loops and fear of missing out, to keep us infinitely scrolling?
Oh, man, that is a heavy question.
Right. If a venture meets all 5 of Kaufman's structural criteria, it creates a platform, markets it, sells ad space, delivers the content, and manages its cash flow beautifully. But it relies entirely on exploiting human psychology rather than elevating it. Is it actually a successful business? Or is it just a highly optimized system of manipulation?
Wow. Where is the line between brilliant, frictionless marketing and unethical manipulation? That really is the friction point of the modern economy, isn't it?
It is. Are you creating true value that benefits both parties? Or are you just pulling the psychological levers of the human machine?
Think about that the next time you hear that metaphorical cash register ring. Are you solving a real problem or just optimizing the metrics? Keep learning, keep doing, and watch out for those psychological blind spots.